Some NASCAR Cup Series drivers want Throwback weekend to stay, while others want it scrapped. Plus, a 3-year winless drought was snapped in the Xfinity Series race today. Welcome back to the Breaking Bob channel. Hope y'all are doing well. It is Darlington Throwback weekend. We've got some driver opinions to talk about, but some on-track Xfinity recap as well. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Always talking NASCAR and racing on a daily basis. Was about to do a post-race video, and we are doing one, just a slight delay. Some really bad weather in the area. If you've been in the Southeast this week, stay safe. Hope you're doing okay. It's been a long week for everyone, I'm sure. A lot of sleepless nights with some severe weather. But regardless, on-track action at Darlington is what you're here to see and talk about, and that's what I'm here to talk about. So we do have Xfinity coverage from Darlington to talk about. So without further ado, let's get into the action as Brandon Jones snaps a 3-year winless drought, 98 races to be exact, since his last win back at Martinsville. And it was a long time coming, a long few years with his stint at Junior Motorsports the last years as he left Joe Gibbs Racing, returned this year with a lot of funding behind him. And, a lot of people were thinking Brandon Jones, it's a big year for him. What could he show? And after a tough start, first 3-4 races, it was a little bit of a grind. Getting his new digs back with Joe Gibbs Racing, takes the checkered flag in a very, very good win today, winning the last 12 laps in a sprint over numerous Cup Series stars. Very, very nice for the confidence for Brandon Jones in that team. And honestly, it was a Matt Kenseth throwback. It was nice, but it needed the orange bumper. If you're going to commit to it, do it all the way. But regardless, it was great to see Brandon Jones get into victory lane. Whether you like him or not, to get that monkey off your back after 3 years, it's been a struggle regardless. You look at his stint in the Junior Motorsports time. 2 years, last year, won top 5 the entire season. He missed the playoffs, and in that equipment, that's almost unheard of, even though they probably did take a dip in 2024. The fact that he did not make the playoffs and won top 5 in all 26 races, it's almost unfathomable. But for Brandon Jones, big weekend for him to get back into victory lane. You could see the relief, the excitement when he took the checkered flag and was celebrating at the victory stripe there. Great story just for the weekend here to get off on the right foot here. And like I said, held off multiple Cup Series stars, Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, and Christopher Bell, who all had really, really good cars today. And it seemed like after 2 years ago, where Ross Chastain was neutered after his antics at Darlington in the throwback race in the spring, where he took out Kyle Larson, Rick Hendrick publicly called him out. Ever since then, it seems like Chastain, either his equipment or himself, hasn't been the same aggressive level. And today we saw a rebirth. Chastain came back racing like the Ross Chastain that we've seen from Classic Ross back in the beginning of the next gen era. Today he was beating and banging, racing hard for the lead in the stage 3 final 50, 75 laps. And you saw him get into it with both Chase Elliott and Christopher Bell. Elliott post-race said, it was what it was. Christopher Bell didn't have really any comments that I saw, but Ross Chastain definitely racing aggressive there. And, with that, he even said, I'll have to watch the replay. I don't want to talk about it. But again, this is 2 years removed from the same track where this is the last time we saw really an aggressive Ross Chastain, at least consistently. Maybe this might be just what he needed as far as just getting that streak back. And at a racetrack like Darlington, where you really expect the cream rise to the top, you expect the veteran drivers. Justin Allgaier definitely was probably the fastest car today, although in the last cycle had a 17-second pit stop, I believe, that mired his chances at a win, although he still battled back to third place. But when you look at the top 10 results today, 4 of the top 8 being rookies. Carson Guapo, who finally got a day to finish in the right direction for that number 1 team in that Jamie McMurray throwback. You got Connor Zilic, you have Christian Eckes, and Nick Sanchez all finishing in the top 8 at a track like Martinsville, where it really showcases driver skills. I think we're really starting to see this Xfinity rookie class and the talent that they bring. And that doesn't even count Taylor Gray, who was spun out on the front stretch in the middle part of the race, had a decent car, but, nothing to show for it. Just seems like a 54 team. If you're in Xfinity or Cup Series this year, you're going to get snake bitten one way or the other. Just tough to be a number 54 in the NASCAR Cup Series or Xfinity Series level right now. And I thought what really made this race interesting was the strategy. With the teams only allotted 4 sets of tires, you really had to determine when you were going to use those, when you were going to be able to, put your tires on and race your way up through the field. Chase Elliott had to burn some sets early in the race, and he got his track position back, was able to hold it. Then someone like Brennan Poole, who stayed out on old tires in stage 1, got stage points, was able to keep his way up through stage 2 on the same speed, same tire strategy as the rest of the field. it really made teams to decide, okay, when are we going to do this? When are we not? It was really fascinating to see, okay, well, every time there was a caution, the whole field just pits. It was a really cool wrinkle, I think, for this race. And it seems like the teams just understood the throwback assignment, whether it was Brennan pulling Alpha Prime Racing with the Jeff Gordon throwback. You had, of course, the Ricky Rudd Haviland throwback scheme. There was multiple schemes that just felt like they were really true to the throwback era, whether it was sponsors leaning into it, changing their brand's logo. It just felt like the Xfinity Series this year probably outdid the Cup Series overall. Also, when I talk about that, I don't mean Larry Mack, who on Amazon Prime Day for Cup Series qualifying and practice coverage was in his Haviland crew chief suit back in the day. Larry Mack just looks great, and a petition for him to be wearing that every single week that he's on air. I think Larry Mack looks fantastic in that old race suit. But again, the Xfinity teams nailed the throwback weekend. It seems like the Cup Series teams, there's about half the field that's participating. Some people are for it, some are against it. But when the quotes came out this weekend from the track, it just seems like it's a very polarizing stance, one way or the other. Dalton Hopkins of Front Stretch was getting quotes from drivers all Saturday throughout the Cup Series garage, asking their opinion on Throwback Series weekend. And you had some drivers for it, some against it. I thought it was very interesting to see the stances. I think we should start, though, with the drivers that were very negative, and that is the two Hendrick teammates of Chase Elliott and William Byron. I feel like I got old 4 or 5 years ago. Not to be a downer, if we kept doing it down the road, we're going to be throwing it back to me in 2018. I think we rode the horse to death. Yeah, Chase, that's what throwbacks do. The longer time gets, we get closer to the era where you get the throwback. We're starting to do 2014 and 2015 throwbacks because it's 10 years ago. That's kind of how time works. Don't be a downer. For the most popular driver and a guy who should be throwing it back to some great schemes, whether it's his dad or Hendrick Motorsports, it just seems like this year, Unifast, of course, just missed it. They didn't lean into it. And I'm sure Chase Elliott has heard it from every side that, oh, your throwback stinks. It's awful. They didn't lean into it. I guess he's just sick of it. But don't like hearing that from NASCAR's most popular driver. William Byron said, quote, "It definitely has run its course, I feel like. Between 40 cars, you cover most of the paint schemes at some point. I think maybe it's something you bring back every few years. Maybe it's just getting a bit repetitive." But then you look at drivers like Christopher Bell, who went outside the box and are throwing it back to people who have made their careers. With his dirt throwback, he's got the silver wing at the top of his hood. That's a unique throwback. Austin Cindric throwing it back to Dale Earnhardt with a unique scheme. I like when drivers and teams go outside the box. You don't have to just throw back to the main, Dale Earnhardt, Jimmy Johnson, Richard Petty throwbacks. There's many, many options that you can do. And even Josh Berry with the Lotus scheme, that you could argue that's the best one of the week. And that is a very, very unique one, going to the Indianapolis Jim Clark winner for Lotus. But just the way they nailed the true, authentic throwback nature, if you do it right, you will be rewarded for it. Bubba Wallace was a little bit more neutral. Quote, "For me, it's run its course. That doesn't mean it needs to stop. I'm just on the side where we don't need to participate." And I think that's probably the most fair take of all. When you look at the Cup Series garage, about half the teams are doing it. I think there's 19 cars that aren't participating in Throwback Weekend. So, they're entitled to that. They're not forced by NASCAR to. Does it fit in maybe with some of the other teams? No. I look at RFK Racing, Trackhouse. They're not really leaning into the throwbacks that they've done the last few years, and that's disappointing, but that's their right. 2311 doesn't have to do throwback schemes if they don't want. But for the teams that lean into it, they should be rewarded. The diecast sales, the broadcast time. There's more perks than minuses, it feels like. And then you get to the old guard, who is for Throwback Weekend. Let's start with Joey Logano, who says, quote, "Throwback Weekend is a way to honor the pioneers of our sport. It's not about it being cool. So many times in sports, when a driver retires, they ride off into the sunset and get forgotten. But Throwback Weekend is what really brings that back to life." And I really love how he says that. We're passing the torch from the past to the future, and we're highlighting guys from our past that maybe once they go away. Look at Martin Truex Jr. He doesn't want to be talked about in the NASCAR world, but when we do throwbacks to him, it highlights the accomplishments of his career. It doesn't have to be, like I said, Jimmy Johnson and Dale Earnhardt every time, but there's so many drivers in the NASCAR and motorsports world that should be highlighted for their career achievements, and this is a cool way to do it. Kyle Busch, who's made maybe the biggest public image change in the last few years, be going from heel to face in the NASCAR world, says, quote, "I feel like the fans really love it. And even if some of the drivers may think it's a little overblown or whatever, it's not for us. It's for the people in the grandstands. Thank you, Kyle Busch. Yes, he gets it. It's for the fans. We're the ones buying the merch. We're the ones getting excited over the diecast and going over the paint schemes each week. The drivers are in the cars. They don't care. I understand that it's hard to get excited about Throwback Weekend livery if you're a driver, but for the fans, we eat, breathe, and live the sport. So the details like this and getting to talk about the past with the present, mixing it, I love how Kyle Busch says it's for the fans. And I think Brad Keselowski summed it up the best out of everyone. I went to the merchandise hauler just now where it hit me. Seeing the fans all dressed up in older gear reminded me Throwback Weekend is much bigger than paint schemes. This weekend connects new and old fans to our sports history in multiple meaningful ways for everyone to enjoy. I understand the frustrations of trying to execute a great scheme, but also think we should be careful not to dismiss the fans that absolutely love this race. And that last part is very important. Don't dismiss the fans that love this race. Darlington is quintessential old school NASCAR. It connects the roots of the original part of the sport. And you go to the middle of Darlington, South Carolina, who it's not a traditional media place. It's not somewhere where you would think is a big sports place. But in the NASCAR world, it is historic. It's iconic. The Lady in Black produces great racing. And when you get to mix old school racing roots with the paint schemes of the past, Brad Keselowski puts it perfectly, I think. So it's interesting to see when you see the drivers that are negative about it. They're younger drivers on the Hendrick Motorsports side who are definitely a little bit more neutral, vanilla, stiff when it comes to media training, it seems at times. And then you look at the drivers who are in the old school veteran mentality, like a Logano, like Keselowski, a Kyle Busch, who have been in the garage for 20 years now. They understand the assignment. They get it. They understand that you have to connect the past and the present. It's a dying breed, but they're trying to carry that torch. And it's disappointing to see someone like Chase Elliott or William Byron just completely dismiss the idea. At least Bubba Wallace said, hey, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. If you want to do it, do it. I get that. I think NASCAR is at a good point now where if you want to do it, we'll reward you with a lot of publicity, broadcast time, but why be negative? I don't understand. Maybe that's just the world we live in. But let me know your thoughts down below about Throwback Weekend. Do you want to see it stay? Do you want to see changes? How do you want to see that go about moving forward? Of course, the Xfinity results today with Brandon Jones breaking that winless drought. If you like what you saw, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more Breaking Bob content. We'll be here at the channel as the coverage from the post-race for the Cup Series tomorrow. William Byron on pole at Darlington. We'll see you after all the Throwback Weekend gets done at Darlington. I'll see you after the video tomorrow. Stay tuned for more.